You get what you pay for. And AI is the next iteration of that. It's like, if you want content for the sake of content, sure, you can go that route. But if you want all of the things that I just laid out that I do before I even start writing, and then the well-written content, that's another matter entirely. You can't just copy and paste. You have to have that human element in there. And I think that's what a lot of people who are excited about ChatGPT are missing.
You're listening to Brainwork Framework, a business and marketing podcast, brought to you by focus-biz.com.
Welcome back to another episode. With us today is Alison Ver Halen. She is the CEO and founder of AV Writing Services LLC. Their business helps other businesses attract, engage, and convert leads online by focusing on creating content that is engaging and SEO friendly. Alison, so excited to have you on. How are you today?
I am cold, as we were saying before we started recording. It is very cold where we are located today, but I'm otherwise doing very well.
All things considered, good despite the cold. Very great. I always like to ask our entrepreneurs, what were you doing before that kind of led you into what you're doing today?
Yeah, I had kind of a twisty, winding path to get to where I am. I majored in English and psychology in college, which turned out to be the perfect degree for what I'm doing now. Had no clue this was an option. I actually thought I wanted to work in publishing. Graduated in 2009, right after the job market crashed. So that was not going to happen. So I did whatever jobs. I answered phone, the usual, what most of us did who graduated in 2009. It was just whatever to kind of pay the bill. Found myself between jobs at one point, and my roommate at the time, her dad, who was an attorney, was awesome and offered to give me stuff to do around his office until I got back on my feet. And one of the things he needed was someone to write blog posts for his law firm. And he knew I had a strong writing background, so he offered me the gig. And I was like, what? I can get paid to write? Seriously? Yeah, sign me up. So I jumped at that chance and started writing for him, and then an associate of his, and then for some friends of mine. And it just kept growing from there. It became clear, obvious that there was a real need for content writers, which was weird as someone who grew up loving writing and was always told writers don't make any money. No one values writing as a skill. And then you get out into the world and they're like, oh no, we need writers. We need people to communicate to the world what we're doing. So yeah, kind of stumbled my way into this. I did eventually get another day job, which again was just answering phones. It was a job, not a career, but I kept writing on the side and it just kept growing from there. And it was one of those where anytime I met someone and they asked, what do you do? It'd be like, well, I answer phones, but I'm really a writer. And I would put much more emphasis on that than the day job I didn't like. It just kept growing. So once it got to a point where I could ditch the day job and do this full time, that's what I did. Here I am.
That's amazing. I love that journey. And it's so true. A lot of us don't even realize what we're kind of getting into or realize it's an option until friends, family, mentors show us an example, and then we can kind of run with it. And now building your business here, you focus on the content. This is the story about the brand and who they are. It builds in the SEO. This is what a lot of businesses want to do for getting organic leads. It helps to nurture leads. It's kind of your all-in-one marketing package. What does it look like for when you work with clients? Is it a set process? How are you kind of deciding that strategy on what content you're going to help them build?
Yeah, part of it is a set process, part of it not so much. The set part, especially if I'm going to write for someone, is really getting an idea of their brand and their ideal clients. So every time I get a new client, I sit down with them and I have a series of questions I go through to kind of pull that information out of them. If they could give me their brand voice guidelines, that would be great. But normally I ask for them and people go, brand voice, what now? And I go, okay, we have to start from the beginning. So for those of you listening who are going brand voice, what now? Your brand voice guidelines are the guidelines that lay out who you are, what it is that you're doing, what are the words that you always use in your content, what are the words that you're never going to use in your content. Marketing personas are usually integrated into the brand voice guidelines and vice versa, because you got to speak their language. So that's the kind of information I pull out of my clients in that initial meeting. And then from there, it depends on the project. I do a lot of work with website designers and developers where we partner up and they do the design and development and I create the content for the website. That's pretty straightforward. If I'm going to be blogging for a client, some clients, they know exactly what they want to write about. They have a list of topics they want to cover. They just don't have the time or inclination to write it themselves. And that's where I come in. Other people don't want to have anything to do with it. Nope. Take it all. I don't even want to think about my blog anymore. So, okay, I will go ahead and come up with a list of topics, check in with the client, and then go ahead and write. And I do always, every time the content is, an initial draft is finished, I always send that to the client for review. And again, usually they want to see it at least the first few times. Once I've been working with someone for a while, I have a really good feel for their voice. They're like, okay, hand it off, hit publish, don't even want to look at it. But for the list of when I come up with the list of topics, it's always keyword research based. So back to the SEO, search engine optimization, for those of you not in the know, I always look at the keywords as far as, okay, what are the topics that people are looking for answers on? They're asking questions about it and they're not finding answers. That's a really great opportunity to show up in searches because it's not super competitive. No one else or not a lot of other people are writing about this. So you have a lot of opportunity to rank highly for those searches that people are looking for. The other side of it is to make sure people are actually searching for it. I was working with a client last month, actually, and she was like, oh, I know I can rank for this keyword because no one else is doing it. And I did a quick keyword research and I was like, good news, no one else is writing about it. Bad news, no one is looking for it. We got to figure out something that's related that people are actually looking for. So that is, in a nutshell, most of my process.
That's fantastic. And I love that intersection between understanding the brand and the audience, because you're that tool in between, having that brand communicate who they are and what they do and how they help to that audience. And everything about specific keywords or where they hang out, what influences them, that is all determined based on that audience. So to have that kind of big picture approach, I really appreciate that process. And speaking of kind of like using the tools in SEO and writers out there, AI is a new tool that's rapidly evolving. It's changing how a lot of us are working or doing business. Are you either applying AI into your business? Do you see it as a threat or as a benefit or a mixture of both?
Yeah, kind of both. I don't use it a lot. I don't see it as a threat. When I got started and was like, all right, I'm going to do this full time and be really serious about going out and getting clients, I did run into a lot of people who would be like, well, would I hire you when I could hire someone on Fiverr who lives in India and does this for a fraction of the cost? Because you get what you pay for. And AI is the next iteration of that. It's like, if you want content for the sake of content, sure, you can go that route. But if you want all of the things that I just laid out that I do before I even start writing, and then the well-written content, that's another matter entirely. So the people who value what I do are not the people who are going to go for ChatGPT. I actually timed myself one time. I had ChatGPT write something and then I edited it. And then I wrote another blog article on a similar topic from scratch. And I was way faster. Admittedly, I'm a fast writer because I write a lot. So this will not be everyone's experience, but you can't just copy and paste. You have to have that human element in there. And I think that's what a lot of people who are excited about ChatGPT are missing. When I do use ChatGPT, it's usually writer's block. It's usually give me some ideas so I have something to work with, or I kind of know what I want to write about, but I'm having trouble getting started. So just put some words on the screen for me. So again, you have something to work with and you're not dealing with blanking cursor syndrome, as I like to call it. So when I do use ChatGPT, that's how I use it, but it's not a big part of my business.
No, and that's important for a lot of people who focus more on the quality versus the quantity. That's what people
Mhm.
are looking
Yeah.
for. So when creating this content, you're absolutely right. Those who would look out for Fiverr or ChatGPT just wouldn't be your clients anyway. So it's a different market completely. But for you, when you're building your business, what's been effective for you for your B2B strategy? Are you running ads? Are you doing more SEO content? Are you building relationships? What's been working for you?
I don't do ads. I do almost everything else. Public speaking is actually one of those that I found really effective. So I should mention, in addition to my English and psychology degree, I also minored in theater. So I am one of the few writers out there who has no problems getting up in front of a crowd and talking about whatever. So hence my appearance on podcasts is because it was just kind of the next iteration of this thing. So yeah, speaking, networking has been a really good way for me to build business. And then I do actually practicing what I preach. I try not to be the cobbler without shoes. I do actually maintain my website and have a blog, and my newsletter goes out regularly, and the socials and all the things. So it's a lot, but not only does it bring in business, but it really helps me stay top of mind and stay engaged with people and educate people. That is such an important part of content marketing that I think is really overlooked. I had a client one time, I think she attended one of my webinars or something. And then like 6 months later, she reached out because she had been following my newsletter and reading all my blog posts and when it came time to hire me, or again, hire a writer, but not only did she hire me because I was top of mind, but in that sales conversation, she upsold herself because of something she had read in one of my blog posts. And I didn't have to try and convince her and explain and blah, blah. The content had already done that for me. It was the easiest sales call I've ever had. So it's been a good mixture of building relationships one-to-one, but also using content to build those relationships and stay top of mind and educate, turn those cold leads into warm leads.
Absolutely. I love that strategy. And this is what I've been trying to scream from the rooftops for so long, is that there's so many other pieces of content that become a newsletter, an email, a touch point, a reminder to a lead or a prospect that, hey, I'm still relevant, top of mind. Here's something that's beneficial for you. And that pre-warmed, already to buy, already to even upsell sort of client, those are the ones who become attracted to that type of content. So it's no wonder why so many businesses choose to go that strategy.
Absolutely. And you can use it in the sales process too, which is something that I think gets overlooked or not recognized, is the fact that if you're going back and forth with a client, let's say over email, and they ask you something you've had to explain 5 million times, if you have a blog post or a video about it, you don't have to explain, write it all out again in the email. Just be like, oh yeah, we have an article about that. We have a video about that. Here it is. Go check it out. Now you save yourself a lot of time while positioning yourself as an expert, because it's not just stuff you laid out in an email. Even if it's on your website, it still somehow seems much more official and much more credible just because it's on a website rather than in an email. And who knows, they might then explore other aspects, other blog posts, other videos that you created. Makes that sales process so much easier. So don't just promote it and use that in the sales process, but also actively dig up older blog posts if it makes sense and use those in the sales process when it's relevant.
Yes, absolutely. And before, when we were talking, you mentioned you have some exciting new irons in the fire. Are you able to share those with us and what you're kind of preparing for in 2025?
Yeah, I have a couple irons in the fire, actually, one of which I mentioned to you before we started recording, and one of it I did not. The one I did mention, which is closer to completion, is my, not completion, but launch at least, is my podcast, which is going to be called Marketing Spotlight. It's going to be me and another marketer geeking out about marketing for 20 to 30 minutes. It's something we marketers tend to do anyway. And at some point we were like, why should we keep these awesome conversations to ourselves when we can share them with the world? So I have recorded a few episodes that will be coming in April of 2025 for those of you listening. The other exciting thing I was planning to launch last year, and it did not happen, so it will be sometime later this year, is a series of online courses that will live on my website. And it's just going to be a bunch of courses all about what I do, content marketing and SEO, and how you can leverage them to grow your business. So if you want to go the DIY route, but you don't know where to start, that'll be a really great place for you to start. So that will be on my website, avwritingservices.com, coming sometime in 2020.
That is wonderful. And where else can people connect with you online?
Yeah, my website, AV as in my initials, Alison Ver Halen, avwritingservices.com. LinkedIn is another place I hang out a lot. I think I'm the only Alison Ver Halen on there, so I'm pretty easy to find. And then YouTube. Again, my podcast will be coming out, but until then, I do have a bunch of videos up on YouTube you can go check out. Also, Alison Ver Halen, content marketer.
Very nice. And we'll have all of those links available down in the description and the show notes. Whatever is available at the time of publishing, we'll make those available so you can connect with Alison here. Now, if you could go back in time and tell yourself one piece of advice in order to get where you are to today, what would that piece of advice be?
It would definitely be to think more strategically about what I want and how to get there. I did a lot of the throwing spaghetti against the wall when I was starting out. And yeah, a lot of stuff did not work. And there's a certain amount of entrepreneurship that involves that anyway. But I feel like I could have avoided a lot of those mistakes by just sitting and thinking about, who do I really want to reach? And what am I really doing here? That, and thinking about the client more than thinking about myself and what I want, would have made things a lot easier.
That is some great advice. And we really need to shift our perspective in order to better serve our clients. Some great advice here. With that being said, you also were walking by a store window and saw a pillow with some advice that not as contradictory, but I think feeds off of it well, because on one piece of just taking quick action without a thought process behind it, there's also those who are overthinking. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it was a pillow I saw in a display window that said, hold on, let me overthink this. And it made me laugh because I think as entrepreneurs, we can all relate to that. So I have not bought the pillow, but it does make me laugh every time I pass by that window.
Absolutely. Just some words of wisdom for all the entrepreneurs, marketers, business owners out there who either get kind of stuck in this feedback loop of overthinking and not taking action, and those who are so quick to jump into something without even having a game plan ready. So find that balance, see what works best for you, and then just take action from that. Alison, wanted to allow you the opportunity just to have the stage. Is there anything we haven't covered yet? Anything you just wanted to talk about or mention with our audience here?
Oh gosh, I could talk about this all day, so don't hand me the mic. I will say I do talk a lot about this on my blog, again, avwritingservices.com. Lots of blog posts there, lots of content about, and my book, Content Marketing Made Easy, which you can get on Amazon, is not only full of this information, but I wrote it specifically because I was sick of SEO professionals talking about like SEO is rocket science. And it's only for the elite few who know how to work Google's magic, and that's really not the case at all. So I really wanted to make it accessible and explain it in plain English so everyone can understand it. So that is Content Marketing Made Easy, available at your local Amazon.
I love it. Alison, thank you so much for coming on our podcast and sharing your tips and tricks, wisdom, what's working for you in business. So excited to watch your journey and keep up the great work out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Thanks so much. It was a pleasure.